Picture this. You're about to hear an answer that could change everything, but your stomach drops as the word no hits you. There's a painful truth most men refuse to face. We give other people way too much power over how we feel about ourselves. When someone rejects us, we take it as evidence that we're not good enough. Epictetus was literally a slave who became one of history's greatest teachers. He understood rejection at the deepest level, and he discovered something that will change your perspective completely. Rejection isn't about your worth, it's just data about their judgment. And their judgment is completely outside your control. Once you truly grasp this distinction, rejection becomes powerless over you. But here's what most men don't realize about why rejection cuts so deep. We've been conditioned from childhood to tie our self-worth to external approval. From parents and teachers to friends and coaches, we learn that our value depends on their reactions. This creates a mental trap that follows us into adulthood, where we believe our worth as men depends on what other people think about us. When someone rejects us, it feels like they're attacking who we are as a person. But here's the thing, they're not actually judging your worth. They're making a decision based on their own stuff, their own preferences, their own situation. The problem is, we've mixed up our identity with other people's opinions. Think about it this way. When a woman says no to a date, you probably feel like she's saying you're not attractive enough, not successful enough, not funny enough. You might spend hours replaying the conversation, wondering what you did wrong. But she might be dealing with a recent breakup, or she might prefer different personality types, or she might just be focused on her career right now. None of that has anything to do with your actual value as a person. Marcus Aurelius understood this perfectly. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." The Roman emperor knew that constantly checking what others think about you is a recipe for misery. When you focus on their opinions instead of your own actions, you give them control over your emotional state. This external focus makes you vulnerable in ways you probably don't even realize. You start changing your behavior to get approval from people who might not even deserve your respect. You become anxious about every interaction because you're always wondering what they're thinking about you. You second-guess your decisions because you're more worried about their reaction than doing what's right for you. This pattern keeps you stuck in cycles where you're always seeking approval instead of building genuine confidence. Real confidence comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for, regardless of what anyone else thinks. But when you're constantly looking for validation from others, you never develop that inner strength. The shocking truth is that the pain you feel from rejection isn't actually coming from the rejection itself. It's coming from the meaning you're adding to it. You're telling yourself a story that their decision reflects your worth. But that story isn't true. Their decision reflects their preferences, their circumstances, their past experiences, not your value as a person. As Seneca wisely observed, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You've literally created your own suffering by giving strangers the power to determine how you feel about yourself. You've made your self-worth dependent on the opinions of others who have their own issues, biases, and limitations. But what if rejection isn't actually what you think it is? Here's something that will completely change how you see rejection. The Stoics discovered it's not actually good or bad. Think about that for a second. Every situation you've labeled as painful or devastating might just be completely neutral. This sounds crazy at first, but stick with me because this insight can transform your entire approach to rejection and setbacks. Epictetus figured out something revolutionary about 2,000 years ago. He realized that events themselves don't carry emotional weight. Only our judgments make them seem positive or negative. When someone turns you down for a date, that's just an event. When you don't get the job you wanted, that's just an event. The pain comes from the story you tell yourself about what that event means. Most people assume rejection is inherently painful and meaningful about their worth. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if every rejection you've written off as a disaster was just neutral data? Epictetus taught exactly this principle when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The event stays the same, but your reaction determines whether it becomes a source of strength or weakness. Here's how this works in real life. Rejection is simply information about someone else's choice. They made a decision based on their own criteria and circumstances. Maybe they're not ready for a relationship because they just got out of a bad one. Maybe they have a specific type they're attracted to that has nothing to do with your value as a person. Maybe they're dealing with family issues and can't focus on dating right now. Maybe they're intimidated by your success or confidence. Their decision could be based on timing, personal preferences, past experiences, or factors completely unrelated to your worth. When you understand this, rejection becomes data rather than judgment. It tells you about their situation, their preferences, their state of mind, not about whether you're good enough as a person. Consider how entrepreneurs handle failed business deals. They don't take it personally when an investor says no or when a client chooses a competitor. They analyze what happened, adjust their approach, and move on to the next opportunity. When someone doesn't want to date them, they don't question their attractiveness or personality. They recognize that person wasn't the right match and keep looking for someone who is. This reframing removes the emotional power rejection has over you. Instead of feeling crushed and questioning your worth, you start asking different questions. What can I learn from this? How can I improve my approach? What does this tell me about what I'm looking for? These questions lead to growth instead of self-doubt. When you treat rejection as neutral, you stop giving it the power to define you. You stop making it mean something about your character, your attractiveness, or your potential for success. It becomes just another piece of information you can use to make better decisions going forward. The mental shift happens when you realize that adding emotional meaning to neutral events is optional. You can choose to see rejection as devastating, or you can choose to see it as feedback. You can choose to let it crush your confidence, or you can choose to use it as motivation to improve. The event itself doesn't change, but your experience of it transforms completely. But understanding this intellectually is just the beginning. There's a simple question that Monkandasa makes this principle practical and powerful in real situations. That question is it up to me? This single question can transform how you handle every disappointing situation in your life. When someone rejects you, ask yourself whether their decision was up to you. The answer is always no. Epictetus created this mental tool because he understood something most people miss. We waste massive amounts of energy trying to control things that are completely outside our influence. The dichotomy of control changes everything. You can control your actions, your responses, and your efforts, but you cannot control other people's decisions. This isn't just philosophy. It's a practical framework for living. Think about a job candidate who gets rejected after an interview. The old approach would be obsessing over what the hiring manager thought, replaying every answer, wondering if they seemed too eager or not confident enough. All that mental energy goes towards something completely outside their control. But when they apply the dichotomy of control, everything shifts. They focus on what they can actually influence, improving their interview skills, researching companies better, practicing their responses, and preparing for the next opportunity. Here's how this applies to rejection in general. You control how you present yourself. You control the effort you put into improving your communication skills. You control how you dress, how you carry yourself, and how you treat others. You control your next move after rejection happens. But you don't control whether someone finds you attractive. You don't control their relationship history or current emotional state. You don't control their personal preferences or life circumstances. Seneca explained this perfectly when he wrote, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." He wasn't just making an observation. He was giving you a roadmap for where to focus your attention. Your power lies in your preparation, your approach, your attitude, and your response to outcomes. Other people's choices remain outside your sphere of influence. Focusing on your sphere of control builds genuine confidence and resilience. Real confidence doesn't come from guaranteeing positive outcomes. It comes from knowing you can handle whatever happens because you're focused on what you can actually influence. When rejection occurs, you're not devastated because your energy was invested in controllable factors like self-improvement and effort, not in uncontrollable factors like other people's decisions.